All right, let's tell you the latest shots coming in of Prime Minister Narendra Modi meeting Russian President Vladimir Putin. The shots on our screen showing that that meeting is about to also begin. Modi is now meeting Putin. And remember, this is he's also held bilateral, he's going to be holding bilateral meetings with Putin and Xi Jinping. Let's go across and listen into what's happening.
В том числе благодаря вашим личным усилиям в эти российско-киргизских отношений. Вы знаете, я уже говорил об этом в этой связи по посту Андрея Первозванного. Я вас хочу еще раз с этим поздравить. Выразить двусторонних контактов, двусторонних отношений на пользу народу для дальнейшего общения. И кроме всего прочего, я хочу вас на экономический форум во Владивостоке в сентябре этого года.
अभी मेरे चुनाव विजय की भविष्यवाणी भी कर दी थी। आपके जैसे पुराने और घनिष्ठ मित्र के उस विश्वास से मुझे बहुत ऊर्जा मिली। मैं आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं। मैं इस बात के लिए बहुत आभारी हूं कि उसका जो सर्वश्रेष्ठ सम्मान है, ऑर्डर ऑफ सेंट एंड्रू द अपोस्टल, दिए जाने के लिए मैं हृदय से आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं और भारत की जनता की तरफ से भी मैं आपका बहुत बहुत आभारी हूं। अमेठी में राइफल बनाने के प्रोजेक्ट को, उसकी स्थापना के लिए आपका जो समर्थन मिला, और मैं मानता हूं कि एक प्रकार से आपने खुद ने उसको अपने जिम्मे लिया और उसको जिस प्रकार से आपने आगे बढ़ाया, इसके लिए मैं हृदय से आपका बहुत बहुत आभारी हूं। और हम तय करें तो समय सीमा में कितना बड़ा काम कर सकते हैं, ये उदाहरण आपने प्रस्तुत किया, इसके लिए मैं आभारी हूं। और इसके मूल में हमारे दोनों के बीच विश्वास और दोस्ती का माहौल बना है, तो उसका तो रोल है ही है, लेकिन भारत के घनिष्ठ और पुराने मित्र के रूप में रशिया की जो भूमिका है उसका भी बहुत बड़ा रोल है। और इसके लिए मैं फिर से एक बार आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। ये बात सही है कि हम लोग मिलेंगे, आने वाले दिनों में हम जापान में भी मिलेंगे, और वहाँ भी मेरा मत है कि हमारा चाइना, रशिया, इंडिया जो समिट है वो उसको हमने आगे बढ़ाना चाहिए। हमारे बीच भी हमारी मुलाकातें बढ़ती रहनी चाहिए। एक तो विषय है जो मैं समझता हूँ कि आज समय की सीमा है, क्योंकि हम थोड़ा लेट चल रहे हैं। जो सितंबर में ईस्टर्न इकोनॉमिक फोरम के लिए तथा हमारी जो 20th एनुअल बायलैटरल समिट के लिए आपने जो मुझे निमंत्रण दिया है, उस यात्रा के लिए मेरी उत्सुकता।
All right, the Prime Minister will be holding bilateral meetings also on the sidelines with Russian President Vladimir Putin. He's there talking about that. Let's quickly go across to Abhishek Kapoor, who continues to be with us live from Bishkek. Abhishek, what are the key things that could possibly be discussed between the Russian President and Prime Minister Modi? Right, so the big news that's actually coming in China-Indian bilateral talks have been held. Prime Minister Modi met his Chinese counterpart, and now Prime Minister Modi is also, after arriving at the Kyrgyz capital for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, has just been in that meeting. He's meeting Russian President Putin now, who's speaking. Let's quickly go back to Executive Editor Abhishek Kapoor on the phone line. Abhishek, what could be the key things that could be discussed between India and Russia at the meeting?
Rhythm, as we see, again, as in the case of China, in the case of Russia also, apart from the fact that it's a historical relationship, and there was a time when traditionally India was seen part of the Russian bloc informally, to the time when almost two-thirds of India's defense procurements still happen to be of Russian hardware. The latest was, of course, the S-400 missiles. And in that context, you can expect that the two leaders would be discussing how to take it forward and then how to deal with the CATSA issue, which the United States imposes on anyone buying Russian hardware. It's just about a short of a sanctions regime on Russia, and any other nation which America thinks is not amenable to their prospects. So those bilateral aspects, plus very important component of India-Russia dialogue is always Afghanistan rhythm. Recently, there were Moscow talks that took place with the Taliban, and India was informally represented there to give an outside view to the talks that were happening. When it comes to Afghanistan, it's a sensitive issue, and so India's involvement in Afghanistan and coordination with Russia on that. And of course, there is this grouping called RIC, Russia, India, China. So whether that also can take place maybe tomorrow between President Xi Jinping, Prime Minister Modi, and President Putin. But the coordination of that and the bilateral coordination or beyond the bilateral relationship, coordination on global issues, be it American sanctions, be it the global trade scenario, and of course, taking care of the defense and the strategic aspects of the relationship. You can expect that the two leaders would be discussing all that and more. And again, we are told that there would be a briefing of the foreign secretary after that. So we would know in a while exactly what transpired. But unlike in the case of China, the ticklish issues are very little or less as compared to our Chinese equation. And so the level of bonhomie is much higher. Between the two leaders, they would be discussing how to take coordination between them to a level where Russia and India can present a coordinated picture in terms of getting peace, not just in Afghanistan, but in the affected areas of Middle East. Mind you, Russia has some leverage there. And what can be India's role in terms of coordinating for better peace and durability of peace. All those things would be discussed, we are told, in this bilateral happening on the sidelines of SCO summit in Bishkek and Kyrgyzstan rhythm.
And you know, Abhishek, after focusing on terrorism with China, Prime Minister Modi also expected to be discussing the ongoing trade war. He is going to be pitching for greater economic cooperation with Russia and also like with China. So very clearly that what we have to really keep a focus on is whether, like with China, terrorism will also be a part of the dialogue that Prime Minister Modi will be making with the Russian president.
Well, with Russia, there is always more appreciation of Indian concerns. It has been traditionally so. Of late, there was some engagement that the Russians had with the Pakistanis by way of military exercises, joint military exercises. What we are being told is that on terrorism, there is a lot of commonality of interests between India and Russia. And Russia has typically been more appreciative of Indian position. And goes without saying that Prime Minister, as part of his aggressive push to get the global community to have uniform and unanimous views on terrorism, engages with everyone. He would engage with President Putin also on that, and the objective of making sure that not just Pakistan stands isolated, but actually pays certain costs for indulging in protection of terrorism. That happens. The Prime Minister has been passionately pushing for a global convention on terrorism under the aegis of the United Nations, so whether Russia and India can coordinate and cooperate on getting that. And then, of course, the larger aspects, for example, India's membership of the Security Council and Russia's support for it. Bilateral meetings like these are occasions to reiterate old positions and reinvent the dialogue and the ongoing conversation in a manner that better coordination is achieved on both bilateral and global issues. So you can expect that the two leaders would be discussing all aspects of the relationship as the meeting goes on, rhythm, as we speak.
And Abhishek, I just want you to tell our viewers what exactly happened when Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to China and he told them about how Pakistan has been carrying on with terror on Indian ground. Also, what were the key points of that takeaway between India and China?
Well, terrorism. If you go by Foreign Secretary's briefing, Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale's briefing just a while back, Prime Minister Modi could not have told President Xi about Pakistan in more clearer terms. That while Pakistan is making all sorts of right noises when it comes to dissociating itself with terror, the proof of the pudding is, as they say, in its eating, and we are yet to see Pakistan's intent getting reflected with actual action on the ground. So while for optics, Pakistan would stop Hafiz Saeed from giving a Eid sermon from Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore, or maybe restrain movement of Masood Azhar after he's declared a global terrorist. But what is happening in Kashmir? Whether things have changed on the ground, whether infiltration is coming down, whether terror camps have been dismantled, whether terror attacks are going down, whether the manner in which Pakistan foments trouble in Kashmir every Friday after the Friday prayers, whether that is going down, we have not seen any proof of that. So Prime Minister Modi did tell President Xi that unless we see that happening on the ground, there is no question of engaging with Pakistan. Now, this is important that this is communicated, because, mind you, one more important point that Prime Minister underscored was that strategic communication has improved between India and China at all levels post the Wuhan summit. So obviously, it is a level of forthrightness and candor that is reached between the two leaders, that Prime Minister could tell President Xi in as many words that Pakistan really needs to do more. And this is also in the context of China and Russia also in some ways wanting that some dialogue takes place between India and Pakistan. So for Prime Minister to tell President Xi that this is not going to happen till the time there is more evidence of Pakistan pulling back in itself is a measure of the kind of chemistry and good equation that exists between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi, and that India can do plain speaking and the world listens when it comes to terrorism is spread by Pakistan.